Support for Carolina Business Review provided by Grant Thornton. Operating in more than 100 countries, our tax, audit, and advisory professionals specialize in helping companies unlock their growth potential. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of South Carolina, where healthcare is changing for the better. Find out how at ahealthysc.tv. And by Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services, with more than 300 operations in 35 countries.
Welcome back to the most widely watched program on Carolina business and public policy. I'm Chris William, and last week was part one of a dialogue around entrepreneurs from across the Carolinas. We will continue that dialogue in just a moment.
Major funding also by Novant Health, bringing you world-class technology, clinicians, and care when and where you need it. The Duke Endowment, a private foundation enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. And by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. Who's responsible for rising healthcare costs? Join us and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. This edition of Carolina Business Review was recorded September 13th, 2013. On this week's program, Marty Bauer, Rob Cummings, Jenny Fulton, Peter Gasca, Fred Sexton, and Wendell Roth. And now, here's Chris William.
Welcome back to our program, ladies, gentlemen. Welcome back. This is part two. You know, when we were talking last week, we were talking about the whole the corpus or the core of the idea and the chaotic part of that, and how you not throw a wet blanket or put it under a bushel, but how you kind of lean into it and create it. Rob, let's talk about funding a little bit. DealCloud, and we'll use your example. You know, you've got this great idea, and to some degree, it's a tiger by the tail, and you know, you've got it going. But how do you take an idea that's chaotic in nature, and maybe not on the outside, but on the inside with the culture and trying to figure out how to grow it? How do you take an idea like that and make it coherent to those who lend capital?
Well, for us, you know, originally we capitalized the business with friends and family. Then we went out and built a product and proved that there was a market for that product. So we found customers, paying customers. Once we had some momentum with paying customers, then we wanted to do more of a formal fundraising round. So at the end of last year, we went and did an angel round of funding with 6 angel investors. The mistake we made at first was when we put together our deal materials, when we were marketing our business, we kind of got into the minutia of, you know, here's the technical details of what our software does. That's not what investors want to see. They want to understand some key points. Who's your market? Who's your competition? What are your finances? And you know, how are you going to be successful and keep it at a high level?
How long did it take you to figure out that you're giving them too much information?
After the first round of meetings, we realized it was just too much minutia, so we brought it all up at a higher level, and then we got some more head nodding, and you know, people understood more at a high level what the business was all about.
In case you're just joining us, this is part two of a panel of entrepreneurs from across the Carolinas that are talking not just about innovation, but innovation within today's market environment, here and now, and how they do it, and how they maintain that edge, and how they, quite frankly, maintain the excitement and the focus. You know, Pete, I'm sorry, Pete, Fred, I want to talk to you. Mouse and man. Coming off of what Rob said, how do you go to funding sources? How do you go to traditional banks? Do you go to traditional banks? And how do you articulate, you know, mouse and man, this is what we do, this is how we do it? I mean, how do you do that?
Well, it's not, it just hasn't been something that we have done as a company yet. It's something that, you know, it's more of kind of like a lifestyle business, I guess, for me right now. You know, it's a good size and we're growing, but I don't necessarily want it to be this humongous thing and, you know, capitalize on it. There are other business ventures that I do, and that is when I really kind of dig into it. But yeah, I think like what Rob said, it's, you know, proving to people that the product that you have is valuable and that they'll give you money for it. I think is a very basic way. I remember one of my professors in school said, you know, when you're evaluating an idea, like, you can think about it at a very basic level, like, why is somebody giving you money for what you're offering? Like, why are they doing that? And if you can answer that question well and intelligently, then that is, you know, the first step.
Yeah, I would ask any of you. Why are people giving you money?
They like our product. They try it, and I mean, I gave it to some of the panelists when we were sitting in I guess they call it the green room, and everybody tried it. They said, hey, I like this. And just about everybody that's seen our product or touched it has said, wow, this is a great idea. What do we need to do to get this in our office or into our school? Another way we do it is visually. I think visual for us to explain it, because we're doing something nobody's done before. We just carry in 500 empty water bottles and put them in a corner at a display, and you look at that and you say, if you have 50 people in your office and they have just two bottles of water a day, that's what you generate in a week. And people look at that and they go, my gosh. And then you line up the sugar on the side of all the different types of beverages, and you go, if you drink one, and I'll leave the brand names out of it, one of these, look how much sugar, and if I held the bottle here, it would touch the floor. And my gosh, that's one bottle, and here's what we have, none. And that's really what starts to get them to think. So when you tie that into a banker, you tie that into a potential customer, visual is always good, and if you can make them, as Rob said, if you can bring it up and just say, look at this, and it connects here, then you've got a very viable potential customer on your hands.
Anybody have a different experience around that?
You know, I think we tried to raise money about 3 years ago. We have a funny story because we got into the business right when they were handing out checks at the banks. You know, we actually got a business loan right out of the gate.
What year was this?
2006, 2006,
so
2007.
Before the Great Recession.
Before the crash, right. And they were handing out money. We had great credit scores, and they were just, we couldn't give, well, we leveraged, of course, but you know, and fast forward 3 years when we had our big growth year and we became one of the fastest growing companies in South Carolina, I couldn't get banks to sniff us. I mean, we wanted to grow, and we went back to banks, and we couldn't find any bank to even give us the time of day. So what we did is we wrote a business plan, and I kind of had some backgrounds on that. There are entire classes, and there's degrees about finance and raising money. So you know, the thing that I learned and I tell entrepreneurs is you have to have a good business plan. It's got to be very concise. Ours was 275 pages. It was way too long. Luckily, I had people that looked at it.
It sounds like Rob's thing about just too much.
Well, I showed it. I had friends that were in the private equity industry, and they said, "Hey, listen, cut it down, get it to 20, and if you can't say it in 20 pages, you're not going to say it." So you have to understand that you have to understand your business well enough to put it in a business plan like that. You have to understand the different sources of money. And you got your banks, your angel investors, your private equity, venture capital. If you understand those. But probably more importantly, the third of that is you have to have the motivation. You've got to get, and the ambition, you've got to get out there, and you got to network, and you got to meet those people, because that money's not going to come to you, you've got to go find it.
So how many presentations do you think you had to make before you got your first serious check?
I lost the count. I mean, we
50, 100?
We probably, at least 50. I know we sent out at least 50 binders, before, not when they were 250 pages long, but you know, at least 50 binders to different people and lots of follow-up calls. And this is all while we're still trying to run the business, you know, and make a living and keep the business afloat. And it just turned out that, you know, we did finally meet some partners up in New York, and they liked the business. I'd like to think they hopefully liked us too, you know, as part of it. And that is part of the whole package that you have to pitch. If you're the entrepreneur, you're building the business, you're part of what the package includes.
I've been told by many people, and definitely experience and believe this, that when you're asking, at least initially, for somebody to give you money, any amount of money, they're really investing in you as a person. So if you can make that emotional connection with somebody, whether they like sailing or cycling. I like cycling, so I talk to people about cycling. I'm like, oh, there's a cyclist. I got it. But
does that work that way? Most cases, will you get the funds if you have that connection?
I think you're more likely to if you can make that kind of a connection. You know, it's just there are two people or a group of people sitting together, and how are you going to come to common ground?
You know, the stories about entrepreneurs and small businesses finding money is well documented, how hard that is. Anyone here, what surprised you most about the process that you didn't expect?
A lot of people say, we love your idea, but when it comes to stroking the check, that's when the challenge comes in. And so when you're talking about your business, don't talk to your friends about it. talk to potential customers, talk to people that don't know anything about your business, but and talk to people that are, if they're going to be willing to write a check, ask for that money. We went through a lot of meetings, talked to a lot of people, got a lot of head bobbing, love your idea. But when it came time to, okay, we're going to do the fundraise now, I think this environment is actually somewhat risk averse to early stage. If you watch Shark Tank, for example, they're investing in, I don't know, 20, 50, 100 companies every season. So they're kind of just spraying their investments around at some good ideas. And the one knock on the Carolinas, I think it's more later stage money, and they're not as they're risk averse as compared to a New York or a San Francisco.
You know, and that's a good point, Rob. One of the questions I want to ask you all, and you don't all have to answer it, but I'd really like to know, you could do your business anywhere. I mean, pretty much, right? I mean, you're talking about standing on the Great Wall. What are you doing in Kernersville?
Well, I'm born and raised Forsyth County.
Okay,
and I will tell you the other thing.
And by the way, is it Forsyth or is it Forsyth?
I say Forsyth.
Okay, all right. Just let me clear that up. I always wonder.
I'll tell you why. One reason, even if I didn't live in North Carolina, wasn't born here, North Carolina has so many advantages with the North Carolina Agricultural Department as well as the international. You have no idea how helpful our ag department is to small businesses, especially food and agriculture. They're the ones who brought the buyers to me from China, from Canada, and from the UK. So think about this, Chris. We're coming up on 4 years old. We've exported to China twice, the UK once, and Canada twice. And all of that's happened since 2011, in the past 2 years, because I knew I sell pickles, right? Well, think about this. 95% of the world lives outside the United States, as well as North Carolina, and they need North Carolina goodness. And so I knew that I couldn't compete with all the pickle companies in the United States, that I had to go abroad. And it worked well because we made a partnership, when you talk about financing, with the Export-Import Bank in Washington, D.C. Well, I'll tell you, they've been invaluable to us.
Was that a secular change in your international?
It really was. And
was the Export-Import Bank?
They were crucial and key, and I'll tell you why. We're small. Well, my Chinese buyer said, look, can I have terms? Okay, I don't know this Chinese guy. I don't know where he lives. I can't just say, yeah, I'll let you pay me in 90 to 120 days when I can't go to Beijing and hunt down my money. So the Export-Import Bank allowed me to ensure that purchase order up to 96%, and I sleep well at night. I can lose 4%. I can't lose 100%.
Yeah, right, sure.
But the good news is, I haven't lost any. In fact, it increased our orders because he could take 90 days to pay me. He doubled his order. So think, because he saved more money on doubling his order and shipping and freighting it and getting it over to China. You know, it's the same amount when you're doing that. So
you know, and let me go to South Carolina, Pete. Geez,
Yeah.
I mean, Myrtle Beach, the Grand Strand, you don't think of that place as a business center, let alone an entrepreneurial hotspot.
It's getting better.
But why South Carolina? You could do your business anywhere.
You know, there's actually, we actually have, it was a strategy. Okay, so when we did start our business, when we decided we were going to pursue our entrepreneurial desires, I wanted to move back west. I'm a West Coast guy, and my business partner happened to be from Charleston. So he said, why don't you come down to South Carolina? I did some research. I didn't know much about South Carolina, the business atmosphere, and sure enough, North Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, just a hotbed of investment, foreign direct investment and domestic investment, and nothing going on in South Carolina. Well, we started talking about it, and we said, listen, this is a great opportunity to be part of that growth, to be part of the entrepreneurial push, small business push. And that was our background, was economic development in the past. So when we had we stayed in South Carolina against most of the advice, you know, against the fact that we have high commercial property tax. We live on the Grand Strand, which is very tourist-centric. But what that allowed us to do, it allowed us to grow, allowed us to get a lot of attention. You know, we were the #1 fastest growing company in South Carolina in 2010. Had we been in Virginia or California, we would have just been a blip on the radar. But we were able to leverage that, and now you see that stuff coming. You see entrepreneurship and small business coming to the Grand Strand, not because of us, but partly because we were out there. We were singing our own praises. We were trumpeting the fact that, look, a small business can thrive here. Let's bring more small business to Myrtle Beach. So that's kind of a sub-push we're trying to push.
I wish we had more time to drill down in why geographically you pick where you pick. We got about 10 minutes left, and I want to go more of a policy shift here and talk about trying to fill what many people will come on this program week after week, year after year, and talk about this thing called skills gap, and that's finding the qualified people to hire. And everyone says we can't find them. You, Marty, have a partner in Clemson University. That would seem like perfect for you. You'd have a huge inventory of the talent that you need, but and I'm not asking you if you do or you don't, but this whole issue about education, it has been a very hot public policy issue in both North and South Carolina, and we haven't gotten it right yet. So how do you respond to this issue about education and workforce development and skills gap?
I think it is a big issue, and that's for sure. And it's not just here in the Carolinas. It is a nationwide issue of skills gap. I can say that how we've worked with universities, so our main customers today are great universities. One of which you mentioned is Clemson. We also work with Western Carolina and Duke. Those are ours in the Carolinas. But we've had good access and good relationships with those universities on a couple different levels. It goes back to the previous question about funding as well, and I believe the best funding is customer funding. And not only do you get the customer, but you get access to them as part of your business as well. And a lot of that goes into the skills development of having access and having a trusted relationship with a university that can help you not only as a customer to your business, but grow your business here locally as well. You know, the four of us that started our company, RidePost, were all alumni of colleges in North and South Carolina. And that's what was our common bond. But since we started our company, we've had 2 fantastic interns from Clemson University, and we have a great pipeline of talent here locally in the Carolinas. It doesn't have to be in Greenville or Charleston or Charlotte or Raleigh, one area, but we know when we have to go to hire that next person, we actually have an advantage here, I believe, in the Carolinas, because there is a workforce, there are skills, there are people who don't cost as much to hire, because they have a West Coast lifestyle to fund, or a Northeastern idea of what they should be paid. But people are willing to do really, really good work for a reasonable price for a company. I think that's a really important advantage we have here, if anything. It's an advantage. Do
you feel like you have the pedigree and talent, the choice of pedigree and talent?
I've been happy so far. I think that's a case-by-case basis on a small company. We're not I've worked for a large public company in the past, and there was a lot of turnover. There's dedicated resources to hiring. For us, culture is very important, and when we go out and we find someone, we know who that ideal person is, and every person we've brought on to our team has been a recommendation from somebody else within our network. So that goes back to here and outside of the Carolinas too.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Marty, but that goes back to making the connection to your customers as well.
Yes.
That's a tremendous resource. Does anyone here, anyone on the panel, is finding the right talent you need for your business model holding you back? No?
No.
I'd say no.
I think that's one of the biggest advantages of this region, is the availability of talent. People want to move here. So even if they aren't located here, they're more than willing to.
Can you get them to move here for DealCloud?
Sure, absolutely. They want to live in Charlotte.
Could you get them to move to Kernersville for Miss Jenny's Pickles?
Yeah, if it was the right fit, without a doubt, because we're different, we're girls, and I'm just saying, we have a Donkey Kong machine we play at the end of the day to relieve our stress. So if somebody didn't like the 1980s game, they're not going to fit in, okay? But they would absolutely move here because they would believe in what we're doing, and that's the key. As long as I can get that right employee to believe, they're going to stay with me forever, because I'm going to take you places. I mean, that's what we do.
And anyone here, when you hear the public debate about education, and not just the kids coming out of K through 12, but trying to find the talent, does anything ring a bell with you at all, Wendell? Or Fred?
I think we've got, we've certainly got our challenges with our public education. I mean, if you look at the public education system today, you've got charter schools that are popping up now quite broadly across the state. But there's always that the stigma, if you will, that the Carolina schools are not as good as the Northeast schools. But if you look at the colleges and universities, they're world class. So there's kind of, I think, either a perception gap or maybe it's a true gap. I don't know. But I think that there's being a lot of work done to try to improve that today, to try to bridge that perception gap from where we are versus the rest of the country, versus the Northeast, versus the West Coast, for example. But I see that we're making a lot of ground up. as more and more people come to North Carolina, come to South Carolina, I think there's a lot more talent pool coming in, and there's certainly a stress to improve the education system. I think it's a focus of all over the Southeast.
Yeah, Fred, what do you think? Talent.
Yeah, I think that was a great point that you made about the perception. My comment would be probably like the people on this panel are here because we've overcome adversity and we've failed or we've not failed, but we're here and we've succeeded and we're going to be successful. I think probably a lot of the public debate is not that there's anything wrong with this, but there's people that are trying to find an excuse for why maybe their business isn't working, or maybe to their defense though, maybe I'm like a huge bank or something like that and I need to hire 50,000 people or something. I don't think any of us have that issue as a company right now. I can see if you needed to hire that many more, that could become an issue, but I mean, I think to speak for everybody, I mean, there's definitely, if you want to find people, there's more than enough people out there. Either through interns, co-ops,
So that's a phenomenon based on the size of the company, maybe.
Yeah, well, I think that's the other thing is people want to work for startups. They're excited about it. Now,
Do you find that?
There is an aha moment, though, when you're making a bank salary and then you want to come work for a startup. They're not the same. But in general, we have people knocking on our door all the time.
Get a little twitchy about that annual income.
We got Rob's in Charlotte, and he runs a financial service market. He's in the New York of the Southeast, so there's a pool of great talent in Charlotte. On the Grand Strand, it's tough because we are a tourist-driven economy. We have a lot of second homes and a lot of retirees. But we manage to find people. When we have people that come into the area, we just drive them right to the beach. And we go, look, here you go. This is what you're coming here for. Like, if you get one of the greatest natural resources just east of here, you can come on the beach, you can hang out.
Well, you got the gay dolphin down there.
You got all sorts of stuff. You got all sorts of stuff. But they close, unfortunately.
Yeah,
they close most days. So, but that is our challenge. That's our challenge. The chamber there is making great efforts. They've got a lot of pressure to push the tourists, but they're really trying to push the small business environment. There's an economic development group down there now. In small pockets of young, innovative groups. There's a co-work place downtown now where all the tech guys from, I didn't realize there were so many tech people in Myrtle Beach. They come and they meet in a co-work place. They've partnered with the university they've got an accelerator and a co-accelerator now. So it's starting to happen. It's happening in pockets, but it's not being driven by policy. It's not being driven by state council. It's all market driven. Yeah.
We've got a couple of minutes left, and I really want to get this in. It's not going to give it any. I wish we could spend more time on it. We're all facing a lot of uncertainty around the cost of health care. And as you look at your expenses, and Jenny, you said, I had to write a $25,000 check I didn't even know about.
Right.
Do any of you lose sleep at night about the cost of health care and the reform coming?
I lose a little bit of sleep in the fact that I don't understand it completely.
Exactly.
And so Ashley, my business partner, has been trying to go to these workshops that they've put out there that are free, and she comes back confused, and I'm just like, okay, well, we got to sell pickles. Because again, we got to keep the company forward. And I'm fortunate because my husband carries my insurance, but not everybody's that lucky.
What, Marty?
I think to that point is kind of right at the heart of it. And the one thing I'd recommend is when the rules are very clear, people make decisions and they get things done and things happen. I think some of the apprehension that's in the market today around healthcare is people don't really know what's going to happen. Although things have been laid out, like she just said, not everybody knows what the rules of the game are. I think no matter what the rules are, leaving politics and interest aside, I think with anything, it would behoove everybody in business and personal. Let's set the rules out, clearly define what they are, and then let's move forward with that. And let smart people make the right decisions to create products, or you never know, the next innovation may come out of here of somebody who looks at those rules and says, okay, there's a way that we can make this easier for people who are selling pickles to offer insurance to their employees.
That's going to be the last word. And thank you all. And thank you for doing what you've done. I mean, it's been inspiring to be around you. It's kind of cool to feel your energy. And congratulations, going forward. And thank you again for traveling to the program. Best of luck to you, and come back to the program.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks for having us.
Good to have you here. Thank you. Thank you for watching us again. Hope you have a good weekend and that your business is good. I'm Chris William. Good night.
Major funding for Carolina Business Review was provided by the Duke Endowment, a private foundation enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. Who's responsible for rising healthcare costs? Join us and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. Grant Thornton. Operating in more than 100 countries, our tax, audit, and advisory professionals specialize in helping companies unlock their growth potential. Novant Health, bringing you world-class technology, clinicians, and care, when and where you need it. Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services, with more than 300 operations in 35 countries. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of South Carolina, where healthcare is changing for the better. Find out how at ahealthysc.tv. And by viewers like you. Thank you. Promotional consideration provided by Business North Carolina Magazine. For more information, visit carolinabusinessreview.com.